Dr. Danger Mousette here, and we're in the garden today because it's unusually sunny in the UK, and we're going to do two things today. Firstly, I'm going to tell you how you can determine whether a piece of furniture has got wax on it, and secondly, I'm going to tell you how you can get rid of that wax. 3 ways you can tell whether furniture is waxed. The first one is you take your fingernail and you drag it along the surface like that, and then what you'll end up with, if it's waxed, is little bits of wax under your nail and a track mark in the surface of the wood, just like that. The next giveaway that a furniture is waxed is water. It just beads and runs off. It doesn't absorb into the surface at all, like that. Let's have a look again. You can see it's just running away. Sometimes you might not be sure still, even though you've got that mark there and the beading of the water. And there is a third definitive test which will confirm it without all shadow of a doubt whether there is wax on that surface, and it's this. Now if you look closely, you can see lots of little brown melted bits of wax stuck to the sandpaper. But how do we get rid of it? The most common mistake when people try and remove wax is this. They try and sand it off. Now that is probably the worst thing you could possibly do because of the properties of wax itself. When you're sanding, the friction between the sandpaper and the wax means heat is generated. Now this melts the wax and pushes it deeper into the grain of the wood, thus making it more difficult to remove in the long run. Secondly, when it's heating up, it also pushes it into the grit of your sandpaper, as you've already seen. If you try and sand this off, you'll use about 127 pieces of sandpaper. You'll probably still have remnants of wax still on there. It'll all be pushed into the grain, which means that the finish you put on top of it will be a bit horrible. Now we know what not to do. Now, when you're dealing with furniture, not everything is nice, long, straight and flat like this. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's exactly the opposite, like this piece I'm just working on. As you can see, I'm having to deal with a lot of carvings, barley twists, detailing, and so on. I need to strip the wax off that too. So we need to have methods to tackle both. So the tools that we need that will tackle all of that, which you've just seen, the carvings and all, the straight bits, are this scraper. Now this has got a silicon carbide razor sharp blade on it, and you need one of these. It's called a pull scraper because you operate it pulling it, not pushing it. This one is a mini scraper which allows you to get into nooks and crannies. Again, carbide blade on it. Brass brush, not steel brush, brass. That's because these are not as harsh as steel, and you don't want to be creating big lines in the wood when you do some scraping. Steel wool. This is my backup steel wool for when that one runs out. But you can see here that it's extra fine, 000 grade. And most importantly, is this methylated spirit. Not white spirit, not turpentine, nothing else. And that is because methylated spirit dissolves the wax and then evaporates. And you'll find that when you're working with it, you'll put it on the surface and you'll have to very, very quickly work it before it's all gone. If you use, for example, white spirit, that'll leave you with an oily residue on the wood that you've then got to get rid of afterwards. Methylated spirit does not do that. Always use meths. Don't drink it. Okay, straight piece of wood, super sharp scraper. Just work the wax off. You can see there's little bits of sawdust but loads of wax. The wax is the smaller particles in there. Unfortunately, as good as this is, it does leave a little bit of wax residue that we need to get rid of. And this is where the meths come into play. So I put some meths in here. I've got some steel wool here. And I'm just going to get rid of all the leftover wax. As you can see from the wool here, there are little bits of wax that were left over, which is exactly why you need the meths, but it's all caught up in the wire wool while you're working the wood. You can see a visible difference there between the bit that's been scraped and had methylated spirits applied to it. So the final stage before applying any finish to this would be to sand it. I've got a new sandpaper because the last one was all gooed up with wax. Always sand on a low speed. The higher speed means that the backings keep rubbing off on the sandpaper. So if we look at the bottom of that now, nothing but sawdust, which means all the wax is off that piece there. This is not more difficult, but the results aren't quite as good as the previous method. But it involves methylated spirits again, and this time we're taking a brass brush. So this is all you do. Scrub and scrub and scrub. Unfortunately, sandpaper can't get in here, so that is just off the table completely. So you have to use another method, which is this. And it actually yields quite good results. Don't press too hard with the brass brush. You don't want to leave etch marks in the wood. You can see how quickly it evaporates. There you go. That is now to the point where I can't do anything with it. So one thing I need to show you here, let's get this wax off, is you can see there's that kind of black sludgy residue that comes off. You can see here there's little balls there. And that's wax that's been dissolved by meths. But that is how you remove wax from complex shapes, just like that. I do hope you find this video useful. I'm sat right next to my pet blackbird. Yeah. Stephen. Here he is. Come on. That's his little feeding house. I hope you found this video useful. Yeah, I'll do the usual if you want to. You can like and subscribe, that always helps me out. What I really like is if you buy me a coffee, because I'm always exhausted after doing these videos, and you can do it by pressing that thanks button below. Hopefully see you soon. Always use meths. And don't drink it. No, I don't drink it. So I'll start with a nice... Why did I say don't drink it? Honestly, they're going to think I'm some kind of random dropout. Brass brush, not steel brush, brass. Brass brush, not steel brush. I'm going to go kill the guy on that scooter. He's effing me off. It's probably only got a 50cc engine. Right. So it's making it harder to get off, and it's also pushing it into the grain. What a prick. Now we know not what to do. Now we know not what. Now we know what not to do.